بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, respected ulama, huffaz, honorable viewers and listeners, alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salutations to our beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This evening we conclude our Fiqh of Ramadan series, alhamdulillah, which is a good sign, an excited sign that alhamdulillah, next week, this time inshallah, we are probably hearing the news that the crescent has been sighted and that we are in the month of Ramadan. So 7 days to go inshallah. May Allah permit us to enter the month of Ramadan. This evening we close, inshallah, with the section on the salah that is performed in the month of Ramadan, the extra salah. So when you reflect on the teachings of Ramadan, the teachings are, multifaceted, but one of the key areas is man qama Ramadan, that the person who is in salah in Ramadan. And as we mentioned in last night's nasiha, one of the key characteristics of the month of Ramadan is the additional salah. So we are looking at the additional salah that takes place in the month of Ramadan, and in particular, the salah that is unique to Ramadan, the Taraweeh salah. So we firstly, recognize that when it comes to what we call Qiyamul Layl, Qiyamul Layl is the category of salah in fiqh that is salah, that is additional, that is performed after Isha until Fajr. So the salah that we perform, we categorize that nafil salah, that extra salah, as Qiyamul Layl. And then the fuqaha have differentiated between that salah which is performed earlier in the night, in other words, after Isha, but possibly before midnight, Muntasif al-Layl, and that salah which is performed in the last third of the night. These are all combined as Qiyam, but the salah that is in the last third of the night is your tahajjud. So when we talk about tahajjud, we refer specifically to that period. But you can have qiyam. Sometimes some masajid, some individuals, they perform qiyamul layl, which can take place anytime after Isha until Fajr. And so we look at the teachings around this salah, right? When we talk about the tahajjud salah, so the Taraweeh salah takes on the molding of qiyam rules generally. That is firstly that the Taraweeh or Qiyam across the board is performed in 2 rak'ahs. When it comes to the Taraweeh Salah would be performed in 2 rak'ahs, but if one engages in Taraweeh Salah, you are either going to perform it with 10 rak'at, as in the description of Taraweeh, or 20 rak'at. These are fundamentally the 2 opinions for Taraweeh. You either take on the ruling of 20 or you take on the ruling of 10. And I was just having a discussion, mashallah, with the brothers before Maghrib regarding, I don't know if you've seen the notice that the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca has announced that they are shifting to 10 rak'at for Taraweeh, which of course is a significant change, that for decades they've maintained 20 rak'at for Taraweeh. Apparently they are shifting now to 10. So if we look at the fiqh teachings regarding this, the origin in reality is 10. So we generally give the ruling in fiqh that a place of immense gathering, in other words like a masjid, if they perform Taraweeh, they should preferably make 20, generally. And if you are performing Taraweeh in a smaller gathering or individually, maybe in your home with family or a group of huffaz or gathering, whatever it might be, then it would be preferable to perform it in 10. as your places of gathering would do it in 20. Hence, masajid generally do it in 20. Now, when that is for Taraweeh, and the Taraweeh prayer is closed with the witr. So another important teaching regarding the witr is that even if one has an intention of performing tahajjud, right? Technically the teaching is that the gathering should remain with the jama'ah until the imam gets up and is done. They stay until that point to get the full reward of the Taraweeh gathering. So in accordance with that teaching, you would perform your witr salah with the jama'ah even if you are going to perform tahajjud salah. And then you can repeat the witr salah. But it is much better to remain until the gathering is done so that you get the reward of that gathering in its entirety in the month of Ramadan. And your witr salah, of course, classically is performed in accordance with 3 rak'at. So now we come to the tahajjud, which also takes place in Ramadan. And you don't need to firstly wait until the last 10 nights or the last 2 weeks of Ramadan for tahajjud. It is, yes, we increase in tahajjud in that period, but you can begin from the first night because the waqt is mustajab. So how do we perform tahajjud salah? And yes, there's also opinions regarding whether tahajjud should be performed individually or performed communally. In other words, in jama'ah, right? And what is the superior opinion? That you perform it individually. That is the better opinion. Why do some masajid, such as Masjid Taqwa, have it in jama'ah at times? To encourage the act of tahajjud. So it is not a requirement for the tahajjud to be in jama'ah. In reality, it is better for it to be individual. But if you want to have a sense of community and you want to stand behind maybe a hafiz, then you can perform it in jama'ah as well. You know, it is a common practice in the harams that they also have what they call qiyamul layl. They have, it's sort of like Taraweeh essentially. Takes on the same ruling that we have in Ramadan. So when do we perform the tahajjud? In the last third of the night, in units of 2. From the hadith of our Prophet ﷺ, mathna, mathna. In units of 2. You perform your tahajjud in units of 2. Minimum 2 rak'ahs. There isn't a defined maximum. But the ulama recognize that you can generally go up until 20 for tahajjud. That is why the taraweeh is also capped at 20. You won't go beyond 20 for taraweeh. You could increase sessions, like my colleague in Scotland at his masjid. He is now introducing this year 3 sessions of taraweeh, mashallah. 20 rak'at, 20 rak'at, and 20 rak'at. He's introducing it because of his masjid is not that big and the jama'ah wants to perform a particular taraweeh, and so he has now teams of huffaz, offering that, and it's in 20 rak'at. And you are permitted to be, if you've done 20, it doesn't stop you from doing another 20, as long as we recognize that is one grouping. And you'd close your tahajjud with witr salah, even if you have performed it the night before. There is an opinion that if you've done one witr, you don't need to repeat it, and they use the hadith la witrana fil layla, that there will be no 2 witrs in one night. That is the particular teaching. That's a valid view. We also recognize that comprehensively in fiqh, the last salah you perform for the night is witr. Hence we close the tahajjud with witr. That would be considered your last salah before fajr. And when it comes to qunut, if you want to make, dua in your qiyamul layl, your tahajjud, and so forth, there are different opinions of when that dua can be made. One is that you make it in the point of the qunut. Others say that you make it in the point of sujood. And others say your final sujood, sajda, prostration. And another opinion is that you make the dua after you have greeted. So if you are in a gathering, I would say, considering the madhahib across the board, to make the dua, if it is Perhaps not the Khatmul Quran dua, because there are opinions regarding that dua. But if it's just a general dua that you want to make in tahajjud and you are leading, if you evaluate all the madhahib, it would then be safer to push the dua immediately after the salah. Because in that manner, you'd honor, in particular, the viewpoints within the Hanafi madhab regarding, dua. And then the last area that I will touch on, inshallah, as we close, is the matter of Laylatul Qadr. MashaAllah, we are already, excited. Those who phoned me today and asked me, Sheikh, are you ready for the Puasa? And I said, I can't wait. Subhanallah. My heart is ready to be cleansed and ready to earn the rahmah of Allah. May Allah permit it for all of us. So Laylatul Qadr, of course, is the last portion of Ramadan, the last 10 nights. And we know that in the teachings of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this night is better than 1,000 months. 1,000 months. And it's in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. And the teaching generally is that it is on an odd evening in the last 10 nights. And someone posed a very interesting question. They said, how will it be on an odd evening? How will it be Laylatul Qadr for the entire world in an odd evening? Because on one evening it is odd, and another evening in another country it is an even number. And when it is evening in one point, it is daytime in another part of the world. So how can it be Laylatul Qadr on a particular night? And the Sheikh responded quite beautifully, and he said, the objective is to seek Laylatul Qadr for the full last 10 nights. That you work really hard for 10 nights. It's not necessarily, tonight is specifically an odd evening. We recognize that it is an odd evening, and also it is within the capacity, without a doubt, beyond our comprehension, for Allah to decree it. We mustn't consider what is Allah's limitations, for Allah has none. Wa na'udhu billah. And if Allah decrees that for 24 hours it is Laylatul Qadr for the world, we can't question, Ya Allah, how and whatever. That's not our role. Hence the ulama say you seek it in the last 10 nights, because that is a very special period. And it would last from Maghrib until Fajr. And many teachings indicate what the night could feel like. But we generally recognize that there'll be a sense of peace on that night. Many ulama, they'd say, often, it could have been the night before because there was a particular tranquility and peace in the air because of the thousands of malaika that have descended. And the night is so mustajab. And so just a point for Laylatul Qadr in the last 10 nights, seek the forgiveness of Allah every night in the last 10 nights. Must be a goal. And the dua for Laylatul Qadr that is recited, Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'afu anni. From our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Beautiful dua, short dua. You can make it from the beginning of Ramadan, but in the last 10 nights, really important that you ask Allah to pardon you, because the month is now coming to an end and you are in the sacred last 10 nights of the month. And with that, my dear brothers and sisters, respected viewers, alhamdulillah, we close our fiqh series for Ramadan. We make dua that Allah permits us to enter the month in the next week, inshallah. And may Allah permit us to come to the masjid, to go to the masajid, ready for Taraweeh Salah. May Allah accept from all of us. Wa sallallahu wa sallam alayhi walhamdulillah.